Let's make some aprons together. What do you think?
Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. I cannot wait to show you how to make this super cute apron. You can do any theme you want. This particular one happens to be Halloween, but I'm also working on a Christmas one for you guys, so stay tuned.
This is the Christmas version that I chose to do. Okay, let's talk about what you need for this project. You need your 1-inch hexagons. You're going to need a template. You're going to need to baste those hexagons and then put them together so that you have this window shape. There are 12 hexagons for each one of these. And then you're going to want to use your template to cut out the fabrics. And then of course that will be sewn like this. And you need 5 of these. So you'll need 5 pieces of this fabric. 1 yard of fabric for the apron pockets and waistband. Press your hexagons, remove the paper, and then pin the fabric to the windows. And then you will take that over to your sewing machine and you're going to stitch around the window opening and pivot at each corner so that you're only sewing around the window. It will be a lot of stopping and starting and turning and so forth, so it will take a while. Of course you could sew this by hand if you want, but I do like the finished look of the top stitch on the front of the apron when this is done. Carefully remove the pins as you go along and try to keep your seam allowance the same all the way around. It'll have a more uniform look once you're finished. Repeat this process for all of the windows. I did choose to do a different picture for each of my windows, and you can do that however you'd like. After these are done stitching, you will want to go ahead and whip stitch all 5 of these together by joining the edge and then just whip stitching. I like to start my knot inside between the seam allowance and the fabric, and of course you want right sides together, and I do 10 to 12 stitches per inch. These are 1-inch hexagons. Just go ahead and stitch all the way down, tie off, and then stitch the next one. Just make sure that your pictures in the window are all facing up. Here's what it's going to look like once you get it sewn together and open it up. They're just joined by one side of each hexagon. Here is a close-up of the back, just so you can see. But our apron, the dimension will be 40 inches across by 16 inches. I do have it on the fold. I need to clean up that top edge. And I believe my fabric is 44 inches width, so I don't need the full width. So go ahead and cut off the top and then cut the bottom and then clean up the side. While you have your fabric on your cutting board, if you want to go ahead and cut out the pocket, that's 28 inches by 6 inches. And then the waistband and strap will be 44 by 4.5, and you'll need 2 of those. Please always be sure to use proper cutting technique. Cut away from yourself. And if your rotary cutter has a lock, please keep it in the locked position whenever you are not using it. Anytime you set it down, just make sure to go ahead and lock it because they are very sharp. And this is the main part of the apron, and I did press down the middle so that you'll have a center point. Let's go ahead and hem the bottom of the apron, fold it up about 1/4 inch, take it to the ironing board, press it, fold it again at about 1/2 inch, and then press it again. You can pin it if you'd like, and then take it to the machine and stitch that. And then you'll do the exact same process for the sides of the apron. So let me open it up here, and you can see I still have that center line pressed, which is going to help us when we go to add the pocket. Here is the pocket. I've actually done the same thing where I have folded down 1/4 of an inch and then 1/2 an inch, pressed it, and then I'm going to take that same piece of fabric to the machine and I will stitch that down so that we have a nice finished edge on our pocket. As you can see, this is the khaki that I used for the Halloween apron, which I had planned to make a full video from that apron, but I didn't get enough recording of all the steps, so I decided to make a Christmas one as well. So you will see me jump back and forth a little bit during this video, so I apologize. Okay, once you get that piece completely sewn across the top edge, you'll take that along with your applique windows and you're going to lay it out on your workspace. You will want the edge of the fabric on the right to match up with the center of the applique on the right, and the bottom to be covered under the joined piece. And you want to lay that out all the way across so that it is all the same distance from the top and to the bottom. Once it's uniformly laid out, go ahead and pin it. So you're just pinning the appliques to the pocket fabric at this point. But this is going to be one of your stitch lines. After you have that pinned, go ahead and go over to your workspace and you're going to want to get your apron fabric and lay it out. You can see your center line. That's going to match up with the center of the applique. Now the bottom point will be 1 inch from the bottom hem, and that's how you're going to line it up all the way across the fabric. Match the middle of the center applique with the fold, and then 1 inch from the bottom all the way across. You're going to want to go ahead and pin through all layers of fabric. So the pins that you already put in for the top holding the pocket down, take those out and pin them to the back fabric as well. You do want this very secure so that when you take it to the sewing machine, it's not going to move at all. Okay, so here you can see I've got everything pinned. The top pins are going through the applique, the pocket, and the apron, and I've got it pinned all the way around the bottom really well. We are basically stitching the outside of these hexagons the same way that we did the inside of the window. Just stitch aside, leave the needle down, pivot, turn it, and then stitch the next side. And you'll just do that over and over until you get to where you started. So you'll go all the way across the top of the apron, down the side, all the way across the bottom, and back up. So one really long continuous stitch. This will be really good practice on the sewing machine. I think I only recorded sewing about half of this one on the time lapse, and you can see it is a lot. So you will get all of your sewing practice in on this one. And then after you get done, remove any pins that you still have in it. You can see here there are your pockets. Now we are working on adding our waistband ties. Go ahead and join those two pieces that you cut. Take them to the ironing board and press that seam open. Sew 1/4 of an inch down the folded fabric, right sides together, and this will make an extremely long strap, as you can see here. It is time to turn the tube. Find the largest safety pin that you have. As you can see, I couldn't find a large one. go ahead and pin it to the end, and then start feeding that pin all the way to the opposite end of the tube. This tube is over 80 inches long, so it's going to take a little bit of time to get it done, but just keep feeding it and pulling the fabric down, and then you will eventually get to the other side. Okay, and then once you end up at the other end and you start pulling, it goes really quickly. I think this took me about 5 minutes to pull this all the way through. Once you get it through, you are going to want to take this to your ironing board. I like to spray it with a bottle of water to get it a little bit damp, and I'm going to iron it so that the seam is open and I have a really nice waistband to work with. Okay, so here it is, all pressed. On the end, I like to fold it in a little bit to give me kind of a pointy edge on my tie. So I'll just fold it in a little bit more on one end than on the other. Press that at the ironing board so that when I top stitch it, it'll have a cute little point on it. The next thing we need to do is go to our machine, set our length at the longest length that we can, and then you see your needle has the right presser foot so that your needle can go left or right. We're going to sew onto the top of the apron a basting stitch on the far left and then at the same distance on the far right. And we're going to make sure that at the beginning and the end of each time we stitch, we leave a long thread or a long tail at the start and stop, because this is what we're going to use to gather the waistband. Now is probably a good time to mention that if you are enjoying my videos, please feel free to like and subscribe. And of course, you're always welcome to save your videos on social media and share them. Anytime someone watches my videos, that helps me and I do appreciate it. Okay, so let's go to our workspace, and you can see we've got 2 threads on the top of our apron and 2 on the back, and we just want to work on either the top side or the back side. It doesn't matter which, but separate the threads so that you have 2 in your hand. And just grab those 2 and gently tug equally so that you are gathering up the apron as you go. And you can just kind of pull that towards the center. You're going to keep doing this until you have an apron that is between 17 and 18 inches across. And then you can stop cinching it. And here is a close-up of what it will look like once it's gathered. Okay, so let's go ahead and attach the tie. We know that where we joined the 2 pieces is the center. We know that this one here is the center. And what we're going to do is we're going to lay it down so that it actually lines up with this bottom stitch. Remember, those are basting stitches, and we are going to take those out. So we'll pin it in the center. And then it looks like this is about 1, 2, 3, about 3.5, 4 inches away to the next point. Let's line this up with the bottom of my stitches and pin that. Come over again. We want that about the same distance to the point. I might let this out just a little bit. And then pin that. Match that basting line up with the bottom of this waistband. And then come out here and pin this. And then repeat on the other side. So that when we go to the sewing machine, what we're going to do is we're going to top stitch this entire piece. We can start anywhere we want along it. So we'll go and sew, sew, keep going all the way down to the other end. When we get to the point, we'll turn and sew across the top. And that will be top stitching along the entire tie for this waistband. After you get it top stitched, you'll want to go and remove all of your pins. And at this point, we want to remove that bottom basting thread from the gathered skirt so that that does not show once you're completely done. Because remember, those were just basting threads. Okay, and then when you turn that over, it's that bottom row of stitching right there that is our basting stitches. We're going to pull that out, and you can see how pretty it is finished once that row of stitching is removed.
I had initially thought I would use this strand of hexes across the waistband, but I would have had to make the waistband a little bit larger to make them fit. And honestly, I kind of like the way it looks without it. What do you guys think? Are you going to try and make one?
If you are big into social media, find me on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Pinterest. I will have all of these links in the show notes. I do have a couple of other YouTube channels as well if you're really crafty. But if you do join me on Facebook, post the aprons that you make. I would love to see them. Thank you so much for joining me, and happy sewing!